Welcome to the podcast, Entrepreneur Perspectives, building and protecting your business one podcast at a time, a KazSource family production. In this episode, we are going to talk about taking the gym with you, perspectives on changing jobs, and Big Ten football. Our guest today is Rudy Redmond, an insurance coordinator at Abiding Wealth Advisors, known as AWA, and a business development associate at KazSource, Inc. And as much as this pains me to say it, he is a Michigan alum, a former track star, and a current fan of that team up north, the Michigan Wolverines. Rudy is an experienced business consultant that worked for Accenture for 23 years, creating efficiencies within this business. Like many of his coworkers, and like many of us, he was part of the cost savings process of a large company. In other words, he was laid off. While he was sorting through his next step, he formed a close relationship with the CEO of AWA, Shane Snively. Shane is also the COO of KazSource, Inc. Eventually, Rudy made his way into working with Shane. Rudy brings incredible insight around business strategy. He has a unique skill set to be able to review systems and processes while streamlining the workflow. With his skills in that area, he is valuable to any business, has become a key piece in the growth of the companies he works with. Rudy is a native of Southfield, Michigan, and lives in Charlotte, North Carolina. Rudy brings perspective of a true business consultant and is focused on making businesses function more efficiently. So let's get into it. Rudy, welcome to the Entrepreneur Perspectives podcast. It's great to have you.
Thank you, Eric. Thanks for having me.
Absolutely. So what we're going to do is we're going to have 10 questions, a little bit more thoughtful of a response that we're looking for, and then we're going to end it with 10 rapid fire questions. You ready to get started?
Let's do this.
All right, cool. So here we go. You heard the intro, and we can't do it justice with one opening statement. So for the audience, can you tell us something real about you that they don't know?
Since I'm from Detroit, Michigan, I had a friend of mine who was also friends with a couple Red Wings players, hockey team in Detroit. And so in 2002, they won the Stanley Cup, and I got to hold the cup and hang out with a couple of the Red Wings players, Sergei Fedorov and also Chris Chelios.
Yeah.
And so we were at a bar in the area, and we hung out and took the cup around and had a great time. And also another little known fact is that this same bar where I held the cup is the same place where I met my wife. So it's kind of funny how
tying it all together. So you've already taken us down the road of sports, our love for sports, and then taking it deep with where you've met your spouse. That's pretty cool.
Exactly.
Are you still a Red Wings fan today?
Oh yeah, I love anything Detroit, whether it's the Red Wings, the Tigers, the Lions. Another little known fact is that my dad played for the Lions as well. So I've got Detroit pro sports in my blood.
Very cool. So when did your dad play, not to try to age you and your dad, but when did your dad play for the Lions?
He played for the Lions 71 through 75.
Okay.
So he first started with the Atlanta Falcons, and that's where I was born in Atlanta.
Yeah.
And then he got traded to Detroit, and that's where I spent most of my life in the Detroit area.
So what's it? I mean, I'm sure you've talked to your dad about this, and I don't know, you're a youngster at this time, but it's always interesting to me to see a guy who plays for a team, and then within 5 minutes, under absolutely no control of his own, he gets traded to another city. So you could live in Charlotte and then get traded to Sacramento, and you have kids, you have a family, they're in school, all these different things are going on. What does he say about that? Like, what was that like? Do you remember it? What was it like for your dad?
Yeah, I was pretty young, so I just remember little snippets and also just little stories that my folks would tell me when I was that age. But pretty quickly we moved from Atlanta to Detroit, and so I just remember going to a couple. I don't remember the training camps, but I remember stories and also pictures, and I do have like little snippets because I'm I feel like I'm old, but
Yeah.
I do kind of remember going to training camp and like carrying his helmet and things like that. But I don't remember
Yeah.
that much of it. But yeah, it's kind of weird how no matter where you're at, when you're in a profession like football or any other sport, it's like things can change so quickly. So you just have to be flexible.
Yeah, yeah, that's amazing. I mean, and we're going to get into that conversation a little bit about flexibility and things changing, immediately, and kind of hopping into the work side of things. You're with Abiding Wealth Advisors. You recently joined over on KazSource. What is your focus, and what is your ultimate goal for the business, and really for yourself within these businesses?
Well, the focus for me is essentially operational efficiencies. My focus is making sure the insurance operations are handled as efficiently as possible, and then also making sure knowledge is shared between people within the company. So figuring out where are the good sources of information to go to, and how do we leverage that for ourselves as a company, but also leverage that for clients as well, to educate them and make sure that they're aware of the latest trends and things like that. So that's a focus of mine, is to make sure that people know where to go to find things.
Yeah, no, and that's interesting about the shared knowledge part. We talk about it internally, obviously, as you know, but we talk about it with other businesses where there's certain people that become the epicenter of information, and they have it down, they understand it, they have great relationships with their clients where they can share this information, but then there's new people that come on board, or there's other people within the company, and the process of getting that person's knowledge shared to someone else is very difficult, right? We take that for granted sometimes, that stuff is out there, but you don't have access to it. And so I would imagine that, like you mentioned before, that's going to be a key thing that you're going to be working on, and it's probably a key issue for a lot of companies, I would think.
Right. Because you think about the aging workforce, and you've got all these people that have worked in certain industries for 20, 30 years, and so they've got so much knowledge that is built up within them, but then they're going to retire, or they move to a different company, or what have you. And so that's a lot of there's tacit knowledge in there, and there's a lot of knowledge that you need to somehow relay that knowledge to another person, maybe a new hire that's coming on board. And so how do you transfer that knowledge to that person effectively? And so that's one aspect of it as well. It's like, and also the other thought too is with that transfer of knowledge, I mean, there's so many things that are changing, within an industry, insurance, and any other industry that you look at. Technology is changing, and so you really have to be on point to kind of follow the technology trends, and some things that you did, 10, 15 years ago are obviously obsolete. So, you may have some of that knowledge built up, but maybe that's knowledge that doesn't apply anymore. So you've got, Generation X and all these new people coming on board in the workforce. And so you have to not only know what's going on out there, but also transfer knowledge so that they're, built up to speed quickly.
Yeah, no, absolutely. And I know we know businesses right now where if there was an individual in that company and they were no longer at that company for whatever reason, that those businesses would suffer as a result immediately. So no, that's great. And so it's not great. I'm sorry. It's not great that those businesses would suffer. It's great that you have that type of insight, and this is something that's very unique, I believe, to you in business that we don't see a lot, where someone can, like yourself, can come into a company and show them that this individual is carrying with them knowledge and it's unique to them and no one else has access to it, and we need to make sure that we centralize that information. So that's the great part about it. Now, kind of removing all that you do for Abiding Wealth Advisors and KazSource, what is your passion as it relates to business, as it relates to just, your growth? What is your passion?
Well, I think my passion, there's a lot of different facets to it, but my passion ultimately is being balanced in whatever I do. And so that translates to business, that translates to personal life. But, as it relates to business, I think it applies to making sure that you are covering your bases in the key areas that you work on, whether it's an industry or skill set that you have, but then also being balanced from the perspective of knowing what else is going on. And so even looking at other industries that don't even relate to you, but seeing what's going on, as far as trends are concerned and things like that, I think that's very important from a business point of view, because you can see, what's coming on down the pipeline and how that may directly or indirectly affect you. So that's a passion of mine is being balanced, and I tie it to the Chinese yin yang symbol, and it's got the opposites, black white, male female aspects. But if you take that and relate that to business or your personal life in general, just being balanced in what you do I think is very important. And also a passion of mine is sports and athletics and things of that nature. So being balanced in your training approach and your mindset as you go into whether you're training for a marathon or you're training for an event, you just have to have a balanced approach towards it too.
Yeah, no, what I think is fascinating by that is, I've known you for a while now, and, just right there is something that you've taught me not only about yourself, but just for myself that I could use, and also for business owners that we're talking to, and anybody who's listening to this can apply this to their life in so many different ways, in balance in the way you explained it. So I think that's excellent. As it relates now to being in your everyday work, your perspective on marketing, and we can talk about balance, we can talk about social media, we can talk about people spending too much time doing one thing versus the other thing, right? But if you were to look at it today, marketing today versus what it was 20 years ago, what is your take on that?
Well, it's kind of weird because I don't want to date myself, and I don't want to sound too old because I don't feel like I'm that old. But
that's a good thing, by the way. Age is just a number, right? And if you don't feel it, it doesn't matter. So that's what I tell myself, right?
Exactly. Make yourself feel better at least.
Of course.
But just the whole technology, how it's changed from back in the day when marketing is more focused to around the traditional channels, radio, paper, print, and things like that. And so back in the day, it was it seemed like it was more difficult to kind of get your name out there, mm-hmm. so to speak, and you only had a few channels. But nowadays, with all the social media and all these different apps that are out there, YouTube, Facebook, LinkedIn, there's so many different avenues that you can market yourself, whether it's you personally and your business. It just, you in a way have to cut out some of the noise, and you in some ways you have to focus on certain areas because you don't want to spread yourself too thin as far as what channels you use to market yourself. And so it's kind of the 80-20 rule where you say how much am I going to put my efforts in a small bucket of areas to get the maximum impact. So that's kind of how I see it. It's just, in some ways, it's overwhelming, and I think people, even as a business, as you're looking to market yourself, I could see why people are confused. It's just, there's a lot of options out there today, and so with I know you with your work and marketing and media, it's you need somebody to guide you, and so I think that's where we can come in.
Yeah, I get it. That makes a lot of sense. So then, someone that's surrounded, by, you mentioned Gen X before, and it relates to, you brought up social media, your friends, your associates, the people you deal with on a daily basis. What's your perspective on the generation and their, not necessarily Generation X, but someone in the 40s, someone in their, maybe even older in their 50s? Are they taking advantage of it, or is it like what you were saying before? They're overwhelmed and they need help on it, or is that more your take on it and they're actually succeeding with it? Like, what do you stand on that?
I think it's I kind of take it. I use my personal perspective, but then try to apply it to the bigger picture. And so, from my point of view, I do think it's overwhelming. There's a lot of things out there, and you also have to be careful with it too, because I've seen a lot of people get burned, with using social media and how you use it, and what things are appropriate to share on social media. Mm-hmm. And then there's it's just knowing where to go to. So, for example, using it's kind of a push-pull piece where people my age, we were kind of, I'm not sure if we were early adopters on the whole Facebook thing, but we had our friends, we had our kids join Facebook, and so that's kind of how I got pulled into it more. And then obviously you're seeing businesses utilize it more, but I think it's kind of, you get pulled into a certain technology or program, and then using Facebook as an example, you kind of get to know it better. You share, you get to understand what's going on with your friends and family across the globe. But then, your kids, my kids, move on to other social media areas. Right. And so then you kind of get pulled into that. And part of me says, okay, that's an overwhelming thing to do, where you've got enough going on in your life as it is, where you have to go into, sometimes you're going out of your comfort zone to try to, keep in touch with your kids or family or businesses. And so that's where you kind of get pulled into some of these social media areas, at least in my point of view. And so I think you can relate that to a business too, where they're not really familiar with it, but other businesses are using LinkedIn in certain ways and things like that. And so then you have to say, oh, everyone else is doing it, I have to do this too. And how do you position yourself?
Right. How can you create a way to stand out, because so many are getting pulled into these things, and then they're following what everyone else is doing, and then they just become part of, not everybody, right? It's a generalization. They become part of the noise. And that kind of leads into the next part, which I'm going to let you kind of take this one on, though, because I see you're on systems all the time, or you have 3 monitors, you have your phone, you're constantly doing something. You obviously are creating efficiencies with systems. So now we get into this thing, email marketing, where we're getting hit constantly with emails and offers and opportunities and questions or whatever it might be. And it could be anything from the sports teams you follow to the products that you buy to businesses that want your business. And the question I have for you is, do you like opt-ins as it relates to, if you go to a website and you're interested in some thought leader and you opt into their whatever they're offering, do you like those opt-ins? Do you sign up for them? When you do sign up, are you someone that's unsubscribing from that? So overall, what's your perspective on email marketing today?
I think it goes to my earlier point of there is a lot of noise out there, and I do subscribe to some people that I find interesting from a business or personal perspective, but quite honestly, it's overwhelming because there's so much email that you get, and so you have to filter it properly. And so I do subscribe, but then I find myself, for companies where I'm purchasing products and things like that, you just have to be careful because then it starts getting sucked into some of the noise that's out there. So you have to be careful about how much you subscribe to and where you go for that. But I think there's benefits, but then you just have to be careful. It goes to that whole balance thing. How much do you really need?
Yeah, no, and I can see that in a lot of your thoughts relate to balance. So clearly, you're sticking to what you've talked about before, and I know the thing that you lead back to oftentimes is your athlete training, right? For yourself
Right.
and for the people that you train. So overall, what is your take today, and what can you help the audience with as it relates to athlete training? And then I want you to follow it up, and I'll let you kind of go with this one. But you've told me this one before, taking the gym with you. What do you mean by that?
Well, my perspective on athlete training is being able to focus on your strengths and weaknesses, and part of it is knowing what those are. And so from that point of view, then you can kind of have a plan, if you will, on how do you attack. What are your goals? What do you want to do to get better and improve? But then again, tying it back to the balance thing is I've seen with training where there's a lot of times where you have to nowadays you have to focus on a certain sport early, especially if you are looking to go to the next level. So I see some pros and cons to that. So one pro is if you're a kid and you know what you want to do sports-wise, then I guess that's good for you. If you want to just focus on soccer or football or basketball, and you really have a desire to get better, then I think it's good that you're focusing on a sport. But at the same time, now that I'm a parent, I'm a parent too, and so you have to put on different hats, and so kids don't always know what they want to do, obviously, and so you as a parent try to cater to your kid, and sometimes there's a lot of effort and expense and time in terms of time and also money that you devote to certain things, and there's only a finite resources that you have, and so I could see that draining yourself from a kid and also a parent's point of view, where like for example, my daughter played soccer ever since she was 4 or 5 years old, and now
she got burnt out from playing.
Correct.
Yeah.
Yep. And so now she's trying another sport, something totally different, which is karate. So, but now I'm starting to hear from her, oh, I kind of want to go back to soccer. So it's like I spent, from my perspective as a parent, I spent a lot of time and money when she was going, the last couple of years, she was getting up there in terms of travel soccer and going to these different, places to play. And so it's a big expense.
It impacts the family, right? So, I mean, it's an expense, and it's like you less dinners as a family together probably, or activities, going to the movies or whatever it is you guys want to do.
Exactly. Yep. And so then that kind of goes into the question you had for me, is this concept of taking the gym with you. Because you have the strain on your resources from a time and money perspective, if you want to spend, you're going on a vacation, for example, and so you want to find something to do or stay in shape. How can you do that with, sometimes, you don't have access to a gym. So what do you do in those cases? And so my thought process on that is you need to be innovative and creative in how you want to stay in shape and train. And so, for example, going to the beach, one thing I like to do is this whole cross training aspect where if you run a lot or you play soccer, you're on your feet a lot, then try something different like swim. And so as a family going to the beach, I like to swim in the ocean and, go against the current. And so I do that, tread water for 15 minutes straight. And that's a great workout. And it's using different muscle groups that you normally wouldn't use if you in your normal sport like running or soccer. And so that mindset too, from a business perspective, if you're sitting down all day and you're in front of a computer, you have to figure out innovative ways to burn some of those calories. So for example, you always hear about getting up and walking around or taking the stairs or sitting on a ball, exercise ball instead of a regular chair, and that uses different muscle groups. So I can go into more details, but it's that whole concept of just being creative in how you are staying active and bringing that gym with you.
Well, I mean, I think the one thing that we can do, you've already given a lot of ideas from the balance, but then to these different ideas, if you're at the beach, what you can do and treading water. These are the types of things that we can utilize, and we've already talked about this, of course, before on Sportspreneur, is, highlighting these things and giving true examples and even documenting you doing this. And these are things that you are doing, right? And I've seen you come out of the office, late in the evening, and you go to train a young athlete.
Yep.
Talk a little bit about that, and then kind of tie it together as it relates to your journey as an athlete when you were the former track star or training to become someone at Michigan who ran track.
Yeah, and I, hindsight is always 20/20, right? So just a quick background on me. When I ran track, I ran the hurdles at Michigan, and so I had a lot of injuries. And one of the injuries that I had a lot, actually it started in high school a little bit, but I had 8 hamstring pulls in college.
Wow.
And so I was in the training room a lot. And so there's different, I use muscle stem on my muscles where they put these electrodes on your muscles to help generate blood flow to the injured muscle groups, and use ice a lot. And I swam in the pool, so that's how I got to be friends with a lot of the swimmers on the Michigan swim team, is because I was in the training room, and the training room was located in the natatorium. And so the track athletes would go there to get their ice and get ready for practice. But while we're sitting there getting treatment, we would also see the swimmers swimming. And so we would also go in the pool for rehab, things like that. So it's just learning those things, how to take care of your body. I like to use those examples of, sometimes I would push myself to the point where I knew if I didn't impress my coach, I just felt that pressure that if I didn't push myself, I would let somebody down. Yeah. And so one of the lessons that I try to convey to kids is, you really have to listen to your body. And if you feel like you're about to get injured, pull a muscle, or something's really hurting, you just have to step back a little bit, or at least communicate that to someone, whether it's your parent, whether it's your coach, whether it's the trainer, and let them know what's going on, and don't feel as guilty about holding back. And I think because of this, you overuse certain muscle groups if you're just focused on certain sports. you know, you have to learn how to rest and relax, and that's a whole part of being the best athlete that you can be, is learning when to say, you know, I need to hold back a little bit and not feel guilty about it. And you know, and this whole concept of taking the gym with you or cross training, I think it's very important, because you see so many of these injuries to kids nowadays, and you see a lot of torn ligaments with girls soccer players, and you know, their body structure is different than boys. But when you start to learn how to treat yourself better and not try to impress the coaches as much, and be more in tune with you and in your body, I think that'll go a long ways into having a healthy and productive career, whether you're just playing sports through high school or college, or if you're good enough to be in the pros.
Yeah, no, and this also leads into business, right? We talk all the time about how, I mean, you can work for a long time and there's a burnout factor, right? And it's different than sports. It might be more of a mental capacity. I hope you're not pulling your groin or your hamstring while you're working. Then it might be something, unless that's the type of job that you're in. But that's, I think it all relates, right? And it's like you're talking about, again, we're gonna harp on this a little bit, because you're proving it out. You're proving balance is an important part of your life, not just in your personal life, but in your business life, but also in your training. And it's something you clearly learn going back to your days in high school and college, with getting injuries and realizing that you needed to balance yourself a little bit more, and how injuries can change everything overnight. And kind of touching on that topic a little bit, not necessarily an injury, but there's other factors that can impact us that we have very little control over, and one of those is getting laid off. And recently on Sportspreneur, we wrote an article, because I have an experience with getting laid off as well earlier in my career, but the article was about how getting laid off is not the end of the world. It certainly seems like it, and it certainly is a tough moment to deal with, and specifically, if you are in an organization that you planned on being for a long time, or you were there for a long time, you're a big reason why they were successful. But those perspectives that I had and other people had led to this article being created. And then you come along, and you had gone through this. You had gone through a layoff, and where it changes your thought process on business immediately. But at the same time, it is an opportunity. It could be a huge opportunity. So for someone who has experienced this, from a company you worked with for 23 years, what is your perspective on getting laid off and the opportunities that can come afterwards?
Yeah, I think part of it is, and again, I like to think of, this is obviously my opinion, and there's tons of experts out there that analyze this type of trend in the workplace. But from my personal perspective, it's basically learning how to manage your emotions. It's a very overwhelming experience, but also seeing it as like you said, an opportunity. And if you have some transferable skills, recognizing what those are and seeing where that could lead you. And I think part of it is, having an open mind, and trying to assess where you could apply it, because quite honestly, the work that I did at my former job at Accenture, it's not directly related to what I'm doing now. I mean, there's things related to the transfer of knowledge sharing. That whole concept can apply to whatever business you're in, but trying to recognize what those transferable skills are, and seeing how you can apply it to a different area of work. I think it's very helpful, and just trying to have a positive attitude about it. We can always get down on ourselves from a personal if you're just talking personally, or a business, if you have a setback, and I know on Sportspreneur you've talked about this too. It's how do you work from those setbacks or transitions.
Yeah.
And sometimes it's a short transition for people. Everyone's different, right? And so it could take a while for people to get that aha moment, or it could be very quickly, and it just depends on how you're made up.
Yeah.
And so anyways, that's my point of view. It's just a matter of having the right mindset and trying to know yourself and everybody. And I'm still learning about myself too. So you don't always, whether you're in your 20s or in your 40s or 50s, you still have the capacity to learn. And so as long as you're open to that and not closed-minded to certain things, then I think you're well on your way.
Yeah. Well, as one of your favorite coaches has in his book, Urban Meyer. Yeah. But there's a line in the book, and you might not like it, but he talks about, and he's, I can't think of his age, maybe he's like 50 or late 40s, but he had talked about having a constant thirst for knowledge, and that's what drives him every single day. Now, he's not the only one coming up and saying those things. It's just funny because he's probably one of your least favorite persons on this earth, but that is it. And like you are constantly learning, and then you're always getting ready. You're not getting ready to deal with a setback, but you know that there are going to be setbacks. It's just the way things go. But it also leads to the other part of it, whereas if you constantly live in fear of what's going to happen next, then it's going to be very hard to be efficient and be productive in your day-to-day work. At the same time, we all have our fears, and we all have our fears within business. So if I were to ask you right now, in your business life, what is your greatest fear?
I think, there's several fears that I could talk about, but I guess to summarize, it's, feeling or being irrelevant, or not having value, or not being able to provide value to the business or to your life, and so that constant striving to whether it's socially, it's very important. Like you have to be aware or have a mindset of being able to help yourself out, but then also I think helping others out. Whether like you said, it's within the business context or personally, you just have to be sensitive to other things, to other people, and if you're not relevant, or you can't provide that value to someone else, whether it's personally, friendship-wise, or within a business, that's something that's that worries me. And then also going back to the same theme, but not being balanced, that's a big worry to me. So family is very important to me. You need to have time to relax, and I think if your head is straight and your mind is straight and your body is straight, then it'll help you out in the business world. Yeah. Well,
I think we talk a lot. I think people are talking a lot about being relevant, staying relevant, and it's hard because things are changing at such a rapid pace. Things have always been changing, but the acceleration at which it's happening right now is like nothing that we've seen in our lifetime, at least. And right. I love it because it's exciting, but I understand that there's a lot of fear that it comes to the table with it, because if, for example, you have to get into marketing and you have to be on social media, and people are saying if you're not in these areas, you might not be relevant in 5 years. That's a concern for businesses. It's a real concern. And then you break it down to the individual level, which is kind of what we're kind of talking about today. And I get it. And what I like about where like this conversation has gone is you've been real with us, and that's important. And you never, mince words. You are who you are, and you keep it real in what your thoughts are. You're honest about it, and you have a transparency about you where you let people in. And in today's world, people want to hear that, playing the games. And, we see, you go to Instagram and you can see people standing in front of, expensive cars and expensive places. And that's not keeping it, for lack of a better word, it's not keeping it real. And the transparency, it's okay to have things not go your way. And to have to rally and to come from behind and to try to win, but you don't win. All of those things are okay. But like you said a little while ago, if you're constantly trying to learn more about yourself and try to be better, how can you not enjoy that part of the journey? So I just wanted to thank you for being honest and being open for this conversation, but also for the audience. And that's what I'm enjoying most about it. Don't go anywhere, because we are going into some rapid fire questions right after we thank our sponsor. West Conner Insurance is a leading property and casualty agency in Charlotte, North Carolina. Thanks to their love of entrepreneurialism and insurance, they have sponsored this podcast. You can find the office of West Conner Insurance on Providence Road in South Charlotte, North Carolina, near the new developments of Waverly Place and Ray Farms. If you are looking to get a quote on your auto or home insurance policy, give Wes and his staff a call at 704-665-5340, or you can find them online at westconner.com. And now, to pick up the pace a little bit, we're going to head to the rapid fire round, and we go quicker with this. You're the goalie. You can pretend like you're the goalie for the Detroit Red Wings, and I'm going to shoot pucks at you one after the other. A few may be more difficult, so take your time. But like I said, they're going to come fast and furious. So let's get started on that.
Yes, sir.
All right. So the first one is, what book are you reading right now?
It's kind of funny you say that, because I haven't read a lot of books. I'm more of an online, current events type of a person. But sure. My daughter is reading Hidden Figures. It's about the African American women who worked at NASA, and there's a movie out about it now too, that helped launch John Glenn into space. And so I'm kind of reading that along with my daughter right now. So okay. How
is your daughter reading that book? Is it paperback, Kindle?
It's actually Kindle.
Okay. Yeah. Does she have a Kindle, like the app for a phone, or is it the actual Kindle device?
She has an app.
Okay.
So I think my mom bought her the book online, and so now she's reading it online. So whatever, if she's on her computer or Kindle,
she can
things
be
like
anywhere
that.
with it and just connect to it. Very cool.
Right.
What is your favorite social media network?
I have to say Facebook. And part of it is, we're so spread out in this world today. I have mixed feelings about Facebook too, because Facebook can definitely get you into trouble too. But I like it from the standpoint of there's a way that you can still connect with people that you really are or used to be close with. So
yeah, I gotcha. What social media app do you just not get?
There's a lot out there, and especially like trying to keep up with my kids and their friends, what they're doing. But Snapchat is one thing that comes to mind. Yeah. I know people have gotten into trouble with that too, but I don't get it. Part of it is just the overwhelming feeling of there's just so many apps out there that which one do I really want to use? So
yeah, okay. So you are, as we talked about before, you're very connected, computers, phone, all that good stuff. Your daughter's using a Kindle app. What app or program right now that you use is the most important thing to you?
Well, and I know, coming from a technology perspective, we're really trying to get away from emails and things like that. But Outlook, Microsoft Outlook, any mapping program, because I live in Charlotte, but I'm getting to know North Carolina and South Carolina. My folks just moved to Savannah, so any Waze, like I use Waze a lot to get around here. So I like that a lot as well. So it's either from a business point of view, it's Outlook, but then also I'd say Waze or
Waze.
anywhere.
Yeah,
Waze.
any app that has to get you from point A to point B.
Exactly.
All right, so if a young entrepreneur came here and you had like 15, 20 seconds with that young up and coming entrepreneur, what would you tell them to focus on?
I would tell them to focus on keeping it real. So this is what part of this is all about is keeping it real. Be true to yourself, and be open to taking chances and learning new things as you move on in your career.
Yeah, that's good advice. All right, a quick personal story that got you where you are today.
When I was working at Accenture, I used to, I met people from all over the world, right? And so they'd have these centralized training events in St. Charles, Illinois. And so I met a few people from London office. And so I think traveling to, becoming friends with them and going to England and then Scotland. I met some Scottish people, so going to their weddings and just meeting people and going to India, business has allowed me to expand my mind and understand people from their points of view. And so my personal experiences, just making friends from all over the world, I think it just makes you feel more global. And so I think that's the kind of mindset that we need in this day and age, because we're being so, you talk about Kevin Bacon and the 6 degrees of separation. I really think it's like 2 or 3,
I agree.
In this world today.
I think travel is important, and culture is important. So, okay, we'll pick the pace back up. We're going to get into something that I know you like, but what is your current take on the state of Big Ten football, but more importantly for you, Michigan football?
The state of Big Ten football, I think it's. I think they're doing a great job in terms of marketing themselves. It's kind of weird because when I was at Michigan, I was in the Bo Schembechler days, and so we were just true traditional, Big Ten teams, right? And so now we have Rutgers, we have Maryland, and so we're expanding. Yeah. And so that's kind of a weird feel to it, but I understand that you have to grow. And so that's what a lot of these other conferences are doing. So I think that the state of Big Ten is strong. I think I haven't looked at the latest numbers, but we're making, Big Ten is making a lot of money, and they're expanding their presence around the country. And then in terms of Michigan football, we've got Harbaugh, and I didn't really like him when he was with San Francisco and Stanford. He's got this air about him. I know, being a Ohio State fan, that you can understand why you might not like Harbaugh, but you have to give him credit where credit's due. He's taken it to the next level. He's ruffling feathers in the SEC, where he's got these camps that he's doing now in Florida and Georgia, and so he's put people on notice that Michigan football is back, and it's sad to say that we haven't really done that well against your favorite team. But I think we're right around the corner, and we're getting these recruits and that will really take Michigan to the next level. Yep.
No, they're taking over Sparty. They're taking over the state, moving Sparty aside, I believe. So no, I agree. I think Michigan football is obviously back in many ways, and putting pressure on themselves. I would say, like Harbaugh's putting pressure on himself and on his program, but people can perform very well when that type of pressure exists. So now, if you could pick one team of yours, I don't know if this is just like a rhetorical question at this point, but if you could pick one team of yours to win it all next year, which team would you choose? I mean, it's Michigan, right? I mean, it has to be.
It is Michigan.
Who's going to win the college football playoff?
I don't want to say this, and unfortunately I'm being recorded here, but I think Ohio State has a good chance.
And then as we look ahead to the pros, to the NFL, who's going to win the Super Bowl this year?
You can't count Patriots out.
Not the Lions.
Not the Lions.
Not the Lions. Okay.
Not the Lions. I wish.
Yeah.
Pretty soon, there will be some. My dad and I always talk about this. We hope in our lifetime that we could say, Super Bowl Lions, but I don't know if that's going to happen anytime soon. Especially, that's kind of timely you say that too, because Calvin Johnson was interviewed recently, and that's one of the reasons why he left.
Yeah, I saw that.
Because of that.
Yeah, he had to move on. So, I appreciate that, Rudy. How would you want people to connect with you? Because I think you bring a lot to the table from the standpoint of you're out there training young athletes. So if someone wants to reach out to Rudy and have them train your young athletes or even train yourself, Rudy's obviously someone you might want to go to. But just from a business standpoint, if people are looking for creating efficiencies or trying to get more of a balance, it's just someone else to talk to. Rudy, how would you want someone to get a hold of you right now?
I would say email, and then also, social media too.
Okay. Yeah, and we'll have all this stuff in the notes, in the description, and the show notes for this podcast. So if anyone's interested in reaching out to you, they can do it there.
Okay. Yeah.
And real quick, since you are a guest of mine on the show, I have to be nice. I was always told to be nice to my guests. I have to give this to you. But real quick, what is your greatest win for you as a fan of Michigan football?
I would just have to say any time we've beaten Ohio State.
All right, and that's going to end the show. No, I'm kidding. Yeah, I would. I imagine so. Well, Rudy, it was absolutely awesome having you on this podcast. For those that don't know, Rudy is an inspiration to everyone he works with, from his love of fitness and his constantly run out of the office to go train a young athlete, to his ideas for making all businesses better. The work he does matters, and it allows everyone to focus on sales and creative projects like this podcast. The perspectives he brings to our business and on this podcast specifically are now perspectives you as the business owner and entrepreneur can use for yourself. For that, Rudy, thank you. And for any business owner, entrepreneur, professional that's having a tough time with business strategy or systems, or simply looking to chat with someone who has seen a lot in business, I would encourage you to reach out to Rudy. He is someone that wasn't looking to be disrupted, but eventually was, and that disruption brought him here and onto this podcast. If you have any questions, please feel free to reach out to Rudy, as mentioned, or you can reach out to me directly. You can contact me at Twitter at Eric_Kaz, or with the same name on Instagram, or you can find us at KazSource.com with links to us on the different social networks. Thank you for listening to our KazSource podcast, Entrepreneur Perspectives, building and protecting your business one podcast at a time. Until next time, we're out of here. A big thanks to West Conner Insurance for their support to the insurance community and for sponsoring this podcast. Thank you so much for listening to this podcast. It's a big deal to us. We hope you found value in it, and if you did, we would be incredibly grateful if you gave us a review on iTunes. Remember to subscribe to this podcast and feel free to share it with anyone you know. More than anything, thank you again for listening. We appreciate it.